You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Today, I wanted to take a few moments to share with you the major initiatives that AMAC has laid out for 2021. We have been working very hard and very closely in Washington on a number of priorities, and I want to be sure that you folks understand what those priorities are. This is a wonderful time for you to share the podcast with friends and family, and if you haven't joined or renewed your AMAC membership, we encourage you to do so at amac.us. So one of our major priorities for 2021 is election reform. Folks, I know that you are aware of how poorly managed the 2020 elections were, and we were up against a pandemic, and we saw some very unusual practices that occurred across many different states. We're seeing today, however, that the efforts to clean up our elections to ensure the integrity in our election and to be sure that we are running free and fair elections is not being addressed the way in which it should be. As a matter of fact, what's actually happening is the Democrats are coming out with a bill labeled H.R. 1 or S1, its companion bill in the Senate. Now, I've spoken a lot about H.R. 1 and S1 in the last few days, but election reform is at the very top of AMAC's priorities for 2021. Let me remind you all just a little bit about H.R. 1 and S1. AMAC will work hard to make sure that H.R. 1 and S1 are not law. This is a federal takeover of elections and free speech. It disenfranchises voters in your state. What I will highly encourage is that you go to our website at amac.us. On the main slider, you'll see a lot of information on H.R. 1. AMAC is working to target moderate Democrats for support in opposition. So what have we done so far? We, AMAC Action, has initiated a phone to action campaign, and AMAC members have sent in over 100,000 emails to House and Senate leadership, to secretaries of state, to governors and representatives. So if you have not yet taken action, please check out our website at amac.us, where you will be shown how to send emails to your senators and your representatives. This bill, H.R. 1, it represents a bold and dangerous attempt to capture the American electoral system once and for all. Now, the idea is to remake America as a one-party system. So anyone who cares really should read up on this bill, and we have made it very easy for you to understand what's in the bill on our website. But we've got to understand the bill, we should be reading it, and then we should be speaking up clearly and without intimidation, because we have a two-party system, and that must be honored. But what is really happening? Well, I'll tell you. The Democrats are angling to lock in a permanent majority. This unconstitutionally federalizes our elections at the federal level. They dress up, we call it a Greek tragedy, in false narrative, boldly telling America that the bill is not what it is. But let me be clear. This bill does not credibly solve problems tied to voter suppression. I want to say that again, because what you're going to hear in the news is that H.R. 1, S1, for the People's Act, we're going to hear that this bill helps to avoid suppression of minorities. But that is not the truth. Listen what the bill actually does. It federally mandates practices that produce fraud, that produce error, and voter suppression. So to be clear, Democrats will argue that, for example, a piece of this legislation speaks to active felons. And Democrats will argue that purging active felons from voter rolls, meaning to take them off our voter rolls, disproportionately affects minorities. That's their argument. But today, 48 of 50 states do not allow felons to vote. And a large percentage for serious crimes don't restore the vote. So if this affects minorities disproportionately, the aim is really to deter crime. It's to protect the public and not enfranchise those who disregard rule of law. Likewise, the Democrats argue that minorities are suppressed when requiring to vote in person. So the left will say that we're suppressing minorities when we require in-person and in-precinct voting or voter identification. But that logic is so flawed. First, these provisions that require voter ID, for example, it measurably reduces fraud, and they're not race-based or discriminatory. Voter identification assures integrity. Requiring people to vote where they live is not a suppressor. Ballot harvesting allows intimidation and manipulation by the collectors, especially with no oversight. It is very much backwards that this bill would allow for ballot harvesting, would not allow for voter identification or require voter identification, and would not require in-person or in-district voting. Instant DMV registration sounds good, right? That you would be automatically enrolled or registered to vote at the Department of Motor Vehicle. But 16 states and DC, as is their right, issue driver's license to illegal aliens, not constitutionally entitled to vote for Congress or president. So if this bill instantly registers folks at the DMV, it seems to me that we're going to have illegals potentially registering to vote. Instant registration from DMV simply creates more opportunity for fraud. The absence of it does not disproportionately affect any citizen. So in short, the notion that this bill addresses voter suppression and does so without impact on election integrity or truthfulness is simply not true. In sharp distinction, the bill pushes buttons producing fraud, historically in favor of, guess who? The Democrats. This intolerable fact is why the American Civil Liberties Union and even the Wall Street Journal's editorial board both vehemently oppose this bill. As Kimberly Strassel recently wrote in the Wall Street Journal, she says, and I quote, "The left and the media describe H.R. 1 as a voting rights and campaign finance reform." And that sounds good when you hear just that, voting rights, campaign finance reform. But that's not what the bill really is. It is actually an unprecedented federal effort to dictate state voting rules. Specifically, the bill would strip states of their authority to decide methods of balloting, election deadlines, and most aspects of election security, and would mandate mail-in voting. It would mandate mail-in voting, impose registration rules, dictate ballot return dates, and void identification standards. The bill mandates one-party control of the Federal Election Commission, green-lighting fraud. I mean, it even chills free speech. And it does that by mandating that your name and your address are registered in some personal system, some doxing system. This is going to certainly, in my view, it's going to increase opportunities for others to intimidate, boycott, and even fire you, for example, if you contribute to a political campaign or action group that someone else doesn't agree with. Get this, it also mandates DC become a state intended instantly to generate 2 Democrat U.S. Senate seats. So let's get this straight. This is not an anti-voter suppression bill. This bill is not for the people, as it is so called. This is a bold, filibuster-busting attempt at one-party rule. It kills constitutionally protected state, local, and individual rights. This bill is not for the people. It is for crushing the people, twisting our electoral process, and giving one party power. It's interesting also to hear what Kimberly Strassel said. She said some 33 states are evaluating legislation designed to avoid a repeat of the 2020 mess, in which the courts and the executive branch officials overrode state law and many voters lost faith in our system. Kimberly Strassel notes, the left and the media are now falsely branding these sensible efforts at clean elections as voter suppression. You see, when we try to clean up what we know we did wrong, the left and the media are branding us as trying to suppress votes. That is a lie. And the real big lie is H.R. 1, a brazen attempt to rig the game for permanent Democratic majority. What is more proof in the fury with which the left is demanding the Senate kill the filibuster to pass H.R. 1 with 51 votes? Now that's really frustrating. Powerful facts, folks. First, Americans must guard against false narratives. A bill that kills democracy is not for democracy. Second, Democrats are done with bipartisanship. You know what? They were done before they even got started. And third, the century-old Senate filibuster assuring 60 for big change is at risk. Fourth, this bill is a Trojan horse pushed to get inside the Republic's walls and destroy a constitutionally protected electoral system. Needed are people who see and speak the truth to prevent the unthinkable outcome of H.R. 1 and S1. So if you haven't yet contacted your representatives, we encourage you to visit our website at amac.us, and you'll understand why one of AMAC's top priorities is election reform. And we will do that at the state level, and we will push back on H.R. 1. I must thank each and every AMAC member. Over 100,000 emails were sent to our senators, our representatives, our governors, our secretaries of state, to let your voice be heard that you do not support H.R. 1. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and it's not for the people. Another major initiative for AMAC is protecting your Social Security. And AMAC has what we call the Social Security Guarantee. This is a promise that we make to you to remain focused on Social Security. Our Social Security Guarantee really shores up the fact that future benefits will be paid. You see, all Americans should receive their Social Security check at retirement age. And we understand that the way things are running right now, the fund will become insolvent unless something is done. And what will happen first is people will realize a decrease in their Social Security benefit. So what we did was we put together a very comprehensive plan, which can also be found at our website, amac.us, if you Google Social Security Guarantee. We have examined the many proposed solutions presented in the intermediate assumptions portion of recent trustees' reports. Essentially, we've done our homework and we've done some digging. And we have selected the alternatives that we feel are best suited to save Social Security's retirement trust fund. And we've combined these selected assumptions with several other recommendations to achieve what is the best path to long-term solvency without raising your taxes. We will also work on the Senior Citizens Tax Elimination Act, which is our effort to eliminate the income tax on Social Security and railroad retirement benefits. Our plan, AMAC's plan, guarantees achieving Social Security Retirement Trust Fund solvency and provides a means for all earners to have more income available at retirement. We also are going to work very hard, folks, to protect your First Amendment right of free speech. If you're a conservative, it's harder than ever to get your voice out there. AMAC will be working very closely on legislation and working to make sure that your voice is heard. We will protect your First Amendment right to free speech. That is something I'm very, very passionate about. So you can bet your bottom dollar that AMAC will be keeping our eye on free speech, and we will be there at every corner, ensuring that your voice is heard. A fourth initiative for AMAC is healthcare. AMAC has always been committed to protecting your health care, especially those 65 and older who love their Medicare plan. We are working with Congress to enact a tax deduction for physicians who treat Medicaid eligible individuals in their clinics or offices. This would really strengthen a doctor-patient relationship for the lowest income earners in America, and allow for doctors to treat those patients pro bono with a tax credit. AMAC will continue to block congressional efforts to pass Medicare for all. We don't like the Biden public option and any other legislation that expands Obamacare. We saw what a mess that was. AMAC will work to ensure that veterans are afforded full access to treatment through either the VA or community medical facilities of their choice, with vouchers. AMAC will repeal the prescription drug and medical supplies kickback safe harbor statute, which drives up costs. A fifth initiative of AMAC's is the recognition and the work that needs to be done to reduce our national debt. First, we've got to recognize it, though, and we will do a lot of work to educate all Americans on how dangerous our increasing national debt is. Our national budget is out of control. Our national debt is currently $28 trillion. On March 4th, the CBO updated its long-term budget outlook, repeating a warning that has grown all too familiar. And they say, unrestrained deficit spending poses significant risks and could lead to a potential fiscal crisis accompanied by higher inflation and an erosion of confidence in the U.S. dollar. Folks, by the end of this year, the publicly held debt is projected to total 102% of GDP. AMAC will not ignore the elephant in the room. We must address our soaring national debt. And finally, AMAC will oppose federal tax increases and excessive job-killing regulations as they emerge, because we understand the adverse impact on jobs and prices, which penalizes seniors on fixed incomes. And it injures small business opportunity and small business opportunity for growth. If you have not yet joined AMAC and you care about these things, for $16 each year, you can make a difference. Not only will you be automatically subscribed to the AMAC bi-monthly magazine, but you will also join over 2 million American patriots who stand with us, shoulder to shoulder. We are the true David versus Goliath story, and we need more members. To all of you listening, please follow Better for America on iTunes or Spotify. You can also find our podcast on our website. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about AMAC, America's fastest growing conservative organization in America. Thank you all for joining us today on AMAC's podcast, Better for America. We look forward to having you back with us again next time.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.